protects her from danger. It won't let anyone in, won't let you in.
Yeah. What's up, hackers? Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and today we have a lot going on. But before we get to our main events, we're going to talk a little bit about this week in cyber news. Just a couple of bits of information that I wanted to share with you. The first one was a report from Cisco Talos that caught my eye about yet another C2 framework. We have seen all kinds of new C2 frameworks come out in the last few months. Brute Ratel C4, Havoc was just released by Spider on GitHub. Pretty cool there. But this one is coming from China, and there are a few things that differentiate it. Here is the link to the Talos report. It's called Alchemist and the Insect Dropper. And essentially what we're talking about is a Golang-based set of tools that have a unified web framework, which is kind of interesting from a user interface perspective. Actually, it's a little bit more forward-thinking than what we're used to seeing from things like Cobalt Strike. So that's kind of cool to see. And in addition, there are some differences in the way that the wrappers are put together, how things are packed. I will let you take a look at the details. There's a lot of assembly to go through if you're interested in that. And then in terms of the communication protocol, it's using a little bit of a different set it's using a bit of a different stack for its TCP-based communications than we may be used to. So detections may not be completely up to date for this yet, so you may want to take a look at some behavioral stuff going on that is worth seeing. And I should mention that this is cross-platform as well. It is for Linux and Windows. I suspect there's probably a Mac OS variant. Oh yes, there is. The Mac OS variant is available as well. So just be aware that this is out there. Might be something to take a look at. Do a little bit of threat hunting just to confirm that your tools are ready to catch Alchemist. Okay, now I could have done a whole thing on the stuff that was related on that was conveyed at Microsoft Ignite. However, I am not going to go through all of it. I am, however, going to go through one really cool piece, sort of, which is there was an announcement at the Microsoft Ignite conference that Zeek is coming to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. That's a lot of brand names. That's a lot of jargon. What are we talking about? So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is the paid for endpoint detection and response EDR product from Microsoft. So it's what goes on your Windows endpoint. You have a central management console for it in Azure, and it is about as good as it gets when it comes to this kind of software, EDR. It competes favorably with CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Trellix. And the reason why this is really cool is that what Zeek does, right, is it does packet capture analysis. And so this essentially turns every single endpoint running Defender for Endpoint into a packet capture interface, meaning that if it's difficult in a distributed environment or a BYO environment to get, packet captures, span and tap ports, so you can get centralized packet capture equipment out into your environment so you actually can see what's going on, this kind of gets rid of that need. So you can see what a packet capture was doing, or you can see from a packet capture perspective what was going on an endpoint if you get an alert on it. That is incredibly exciting as an incident responder or as a threat hunter. However, this is going to cost you. Okay, so Defender for Endpoint is not free, and some of these features, I suspect, I don't know if it was completely announced this way. Let me check. I thought I had this up somewhere. I'm looking to see if it's part of the E5 license. It doesn't say yet, but my guess is that it will be part of the E5 license because this is a really, really nice feature, which means it's going to be expensive. So the reason I wanted to mention this wasn't just because it's cool, but because it turns out that you can kind of already do this if you have a way of doing what's called AR, automatic responses, the AR in SOAR, right? Security orchestration and automatic responses. If you have a way of doing that, or if you're quick enough on your response to an alert, you can kick off something that will do this for you. So let me show you how to do this. Before we get into our main material, I want to kind of briefly just hop over into a little bit of PowerShell just to show you how you would do this. So let me get there we go. There's my admin shell. Let me switch over to our live desktop just for a moment. Okay, so it turns out that in Windows 10, there is something called pktmon. If you're not familiar with pktmon, it is a packet capture capability that is now built right into Windows. So check this out. I'm running as an admin, and if I do pktmon list, it'll show me all of the things that I can, all the interfaces that I can capture packets on, right? You see I've got some VirtualBox stuff. I've got my VM things going on. Hyper-V is going to create a lot of virtual interfaces. And then I've got my actual hardware, right? So if I do pktmon filters, what I can do is I can do add, and I can choose a MAC address. I can choose a TCP flag if I want. I can choose an IP to listen on, a port to listen on. So I can add filters based on whatever kind of things I want to do. So that's pretty neat, right? If I just do pktmon start-c, that'll start capturing packets. And if I haven't added any filters, it'll just start doing that, right? So I can just fire that up. And now it's going to start running this. If I run pktmon counters, right, you can see already I'm picking up stuff. It has already captured a bunch of packets. To call it off, I will run pktmon stop, at which point it exports what it found to this .etl file in the local directory. I don't know how useful that is, but I'll tell you what else I have. If I do pktmon and just look for the basic menu, I have etl to pcap. So the next thing I could do is pktmon, that's really hard to say. Maybe I should say packetmon. Packetmon etl to pcap. And now I have myself a pcap-ng, which I can open with Wireshark or anything else, network miner, anything else that is able to look at pcap-ng files. So it's a little bit more manual effort, but it turns out that Windows endpoints already have the ability to do packet capture with a little bit of automation already built in. You just have to kick off this pktmon component and then stop it when you're ready. So one of the things you might want to consider doing, depending on the threat, is think about your sequencing here, right? If you have a reason to believe that you should contain the host, if you can contain the host, maybe kick this off first and then let containment happen, or have containment happen in such a way that it is isolated from your internal network, but it can still phone home, depending on what you're interested in doing, what your concern is, right? This is really cool for malware analysis too, as well. I definitely have this as part of my malware lab. The second that I start firing off a sample, I'm running pktmon right on the thing, because why not, right? Million times easier than setting up Zeek. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear as to this as a feature. It's kind of like a bonus tutorial. Hello, Gebs. Don't call me that, please. I actually prefer my full name, or just Taggart, because that's what everyone calls me. Okay, so last thing I wanted to talk. So what are we actually doing today? Yes, thank you. What are we actually doing today? I had a crazy week in which I stumbled upon this massive operation. Maybe you are aware of this and I'm just late to the party. That's entirely possible, but I thought it was pretty wild. Where hundreds of thousands of sites have been compromised in order to host online gambling. And specifically online gambling from Indonesia. As we'll talk about, gambling is technically illegal in Indonesia, but online gambling is a huge business. The thing is that in order to make that work, it has to be hosted in kind of different places. So we'll see what is going on here. But after dealing with a bit of an incident response and recovering systems and everything else like that, No, this is not NPM. So after recovering systems and kind of going through, I found all sorts of cool artifacts that I thought were worth going through. And it really speaks to two things. One, it speaks to what most criminal actors, not APTs that we fantasize about, but what most criminal actors are really interested in. That's one. And two, that we miss the basics, and it's the basics that are going to save us or doom us. Ginge, thank you so much for the 5 gift subscriptions to Wonder Lab, Night of Dark, Fury, Hey It's MK, and Toy Hoshi. So we're going to jump right in with what I found and then what I discovered after that. So let's get right into it. Okay, let's get some tunes going. Perfect. All right. So none of this is proprietary information. All of this this is after initial compromise. This was the first dropper that we found. But in the situation that we discovered, it was a WordPress site that had been compromised, and the original WordPress site had been blown away. Okay? And then a separate gambling site had been put there in its place. But after doing some investigation, we did find this is the initial dropper. So it's PHP. We're going to be in webland for a little bit today. So we're talking about PHP. This is what we found. Now, you can already see that there's some pretty ridiculous obfuscation going on here. We have a bunch of random variable names. We have string concatenation to avoid basic string detection like function exists. We have eval going on. What? Why? So immediately, like the second you see something like this is malware. This isn't supposed to be here. No human would create PHP like this. But what did it do? Well, I want to show you what it did, but I want to show it to you basically on from searching for the same terms on the internet. And this is where my head started to explode. So what we found was a site that was Indonesian based on the language and that was about gambling. Now, in terms of whether it's crypto gambling, I don't know because I didn't play. You know what I mean? I didn't log in. I didn't create an account to go, play, but I suspect that there are multiple payment methods. This is absolutely obfuscation. Yes, this is what you're looking at, is obfuscation. Now, if we look for the terms, this is the one that I found most useful. Slot Gekor. Gekor is like a game name in Indonesian. It doesn't translate to anything, but as you can see, it definitely is fairly popular. I've got 8.6 million results here just looking for that. And if you start looking carefully at these URLs, something doesn't seem quite right now, does it? Newsfeed.nku.edu, Austin.utexas.edu, the Brookings Institute. I'm actually a big fan of Brookings. I listen to a lot of the Lawfare podcasts. I read a lot of Lawfare. So let's open this in a private window. What happened? What is this? So, first of all, the question is, why are they targeting EDU sites? I don't know that they are specifically targeting EDU sites. We'll get to that in just a second. This is not cross-site scripting. It is absolutely not cross-site scripting. It's one of two things. It's one of two things. Okay? In this case, right, I believe that it was a WordPress site takeover. So they hack WordPress sites and turn them into gambling platforms. Yes, or I have also found evidence of subdomain takeovers doing the same thing. Exactly right, Gav. So one of two things. In our case, it was definitely WordPress takeover because we found the code, right? It was on our systems. It wasn't a DNS takeover. It wasn't a subdomain takeover like that. So I think the most common one is WordPress. So if you look through a bunch of these sites, right? That's for later. Stay tuned. But if you look for a lot of these sites, oh, this is a good one. This is from the state of Nevada's Department of Health. And you look at it at uploads, right? /Slatka Corp. This is definitely something that the state of Nevada wants on its website, right? And if we get rid of that /uploads, this site is legit. And in fact, if we navigate to it in a real browser with my extensions, hey, Kieran, we'll see what kind of technology we're dealing with here. Look at that. It's WordPress. So we know that it's WordPress. If many sites are hit by the same thing, doesn't that indicate that the supply chain has been compromised somehow? No, it absolutely does not. I'm going to caution everybody here. Do not jump to conclusions. Take the evidence as it presents itself. Do not start making assumptions just yet. First of all, I don't know that I've seen enough to make any, firm conclusions, but y'all definitely haven't because we just got started. So take a breath, sit back, get some popcorn. We're going to be here for a minute. You're going to learn about what this thing is and how it worked. The Cornell Art Museum. This one bums me out a lot. You can see that it does seem like, at least in the first page of results, we have a lot of .edu, we have a lot of .org. Now, these are going to be popular sites. Now, you see that we have, this is just we're searching for the term. Let's use a little bit of Google dorking to get a little bit more specific. So let's go to InTitle, Slatka Core, right? And by the way, there are other terms like Citus Judy. I found out that, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but Citus Judy is gambling site, and Citus Judy is gambling site in Indonesian. So again, there's UTexas, right? There's NKU. There's the Nevada site, Cornell Art Museum. And notice again, we have about 1 million results when it's in the title, right? If we do or in title Citus Judy, now we go back up to 2 million results. And if we do, check this, in url.edu, it's 11.2. So 11,200 EDU sites have been compromised with this. Arizona. Their financial aid site has been... Now, this one is actually locked with a real authentication, but not all of them are, right? This is the Smithsonian. I think this one's also locked. I took a look at a bunch of these. Oh no, this one's not locked. si.edu. Now again, because we have this path here, this tells us something really important. This tells us that the site itself was compromised rather than it being a DNS takeover, right? If you have a full URL as opposed to just a domain getting redirected, this is absolutely a site takeover. Now, if we just go to americanart.si.edu, it says, which is kind of interesting. That might just be bad permissions on the path. But if we go to americanart.si.edu, guess what? We're the Smithsonian. So U.S. citizens, your tax dollars are hosting Indonesian gambling sites. Actually, American residents, not just American citizens. Anybody who's here is paying taxes. So, kind of a bummer, right? Now, again, you go through these, what you're going to find out is that almost all of them are WordPress sites. Right? You can kind of even see it here. This looks so WordPressy. Okay, but like it's forbidden, but it's WordPress, right? So here's the thing. There are a lot of ways to compromise WordPress sites. A lot of ways. Whether it's through vulnerable extensions. That's one of the main ones. But I'm going to be honest with you. I am pretty sure that these folks are not working that hard. I think that what they're finding are WordPress sites with weak admin passwords. So, Dean, you can use built with. I don't. I use Wappalizer, which does some of the same stuff. Yeah, I use Wappalizer to do that exact same thing. Very handy. And if you want to learn more about that, you can certainly check that out in the PWST Practical Web App Security and Testing course. But yeah, okay, so that's wild. By the way, this is .edu, 11,200. Let's change it to .org. But sometimes Wappalizer slows down the page. It has never been a problem for me, FDSSec. It has absolutely never been a problem for me. So, .org sites, 284,000. Let's do .gov, 15,005. This is a problem. Now, they're not all US sites, by the way, right? Some, like this gov.ph, that's the Philippines, I believe. Gov.pk, that's Pakistan, right? .br, that's Brazil. So it's not just the US. This is a widespread, this is a global campaign. How many .com? Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, we were at 9 million before. So .com, this is why I say, I don't want to say it's entirely targeting nonprofits. 1.65 million, right? There's a bunch of them. And look how common, like, look how consistent a lot of this is, right? With the same emoji, the same preview. Yeah, that's right. They're scanning for WordPress sites, and then they are using a set of scripted attacks to do these takeovers. Now, how did I find it? We got. We cleaned it up, but we got, right? One of our sites at my organization was hit. It was cleaned up, and we recovered, and now we know how to protect against this better. But yeah, it happens. Hey, low-key flex, thank you so much for the follow. That took a second. Ambue Pick, thank you so much for the follow. Is there a reason your Google search has 2 dots before the gov? There is a reason. It is regex, I found out. Yeah, .com doesn't work, but .com does. How would you go about cleaning it up? Well, first of all, prevent if you have an internal network, prevent external access to your admin pages. We'll talk a little bit more about hardening in a minute. Right now that we've taken a look at the scope of the problem, I want to dive down a little bit into what actually is going on here. What did the dropper, at least the dropper that we found, do? How did it work? And why was it so scary? Yeah, you can escape with this as well. And so basically, yeah, I was excited to discover that you can use regular expressions in in URL. I didn't know that, but it turns out. So if you want to hit like .com, so this is cool because if I do .gov, right, this should work. Yeah. It still does the BR. The $sign doesn't appear to be honored for the end of the... But maybe if I do a /, that does better. No, because it still says .br. I'm not quite sure what all the rules are. Is this a known WordPress vulnerability or just a config issue? We have no idea. I believe, based on what I saw, that this is configuration. It's weak admin passwords and things like that. That's going to be the vast majority. But yeah, it's possible that there are extensions that are WordPress plugins that are vulnerable as well, right? You would have to look at somebody's individual logs in order to find out what's going on, right? And I'm not going to show you ours, but I will show you the dropper that we discovered, which is right here. So check this out. This is the one that we actually got. Now, it was all of these lines here with the semicolons were single line. I split them up for easy read. But you can see, look at the similarity between this and what we'll talk about in a minute, which is the alpha shell. You can see it's the same thing with different values, right? Not all different values. Some of them are the same. Like these up here don't appear to have been changed at all. But you cannot guarantee that that is true. So if we keep going down, again, I did some cleanup here to make this a little bit easier to see. I didn't rename all the variables because why would I? It's too much. But there are some things we do know about this PHP. First of all, it's looking for a specific function with function exists. It's using eval, which is kind of the dead giveaway that this is bad news bears. And then it has a set of base 64 characters for encoding. It's using substring. It's using ord. You're going to see some bit shifting later. So all of this is just obfuscation. Hey, Oreo Bite, good to see you. Just a Guy, good to see you. What's going on here is it is looking for specific functions that it has access to, at which point, if it has everything that it needs, it goes to work. And what does it do? It uses its built-in functions that it's just created, or that it is creating, and then it uses the eval function to basically unzip some base 64 encoded material. What is it base 64 decode? Essentially, it base 64 decodes into a second stage that eventually gets us to this. And this is, in fact, this is the second stage, right? Which is the alpha shell. Now, this is pretty much raw. So if you're let's talk a little bit about analysis. So as I said, the first thing that I did once I got this web shell was I split it up based on semicolons, and I made line returns, and then I changed some of the names of the functions so that I could identify them later in the code. But because of the way this thing is written, there's actually a really easy way of figuring out what this next stage is. And that is simply to replace eval here, which is going to execute the code in memory. And that's the trick, right? That's the obfuscation. The actual web shell, as it is going to be presented by PHP, never touches the file system, right? It's only running in the memory of PHP. It's only running in the PHP module. It never touches the web root, okay? And that means that the disk forensics are going to miss that part. And that's also tricky for Yara rules and things like that. Can this vulnerability be indexed with Shodan? Probably not. Not reliably, and let me tell you why. Shodan is doing a quick hit on the root of HTTP servers. Most of the things that we've found with this, if you look carefully, right, they are inside of /Slatka core 777 or whatever, like Washington. That's a bummer. Now, some of these are. It's entirely possible that you'll find them. You can definitely look for it with Shodan, but I don't think it'll be as comprehensive as what we've done here. And again, don't log on to a single technique, right? As I said, we've identified that there is at least one kind of WordPress exploit, which is, weak admin creds or something like that. There may be also WordPress plugins that this group is exploiting. And we also do have evidence that there are DNS takeovers. So they're using a bunch of different things. Don't lock into a single TTP, a single tactic or technique here that these attackers are using. They are using whatever works, right? And I'm sure, given the scale of this, that it's well scripted. They have a staff that does this. Now, if we wanted to see what this GZ inflate gives us, easy move here. As long as you have PHP installed, right? You can run PHP from the command line. Let me make that just a little bit bigger. Right, you can run PHP from the command line. If we change the eval to echo, now it's going to print out the results, right? Which is exactly what we want. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out these set time limits and INI set memory limits because they're not helpful for our debugging purposes here. Now I'm going to run PHP where 12345 and I'll send that to extracted.php. Oh. Undefined call to create function. Yeah. So one other thing that we want to do is comment this line out. Yes. And then, look what we got. We got ourselves some malware. In fact, we have some base 64 information here in a comment, which is kind of interesting. Let's see what that's all about. By the way, some of you might be wondering, why on earth am I using Kali Linux for blue team work? I personally find that Kali Linux works better as a forensics and malware analysis platform than Remnux. I do not actually like working with Remnux. I can install a bunch of tools in Kali alongside the offensive tools that actually have some cross functionality anyway. And now I have one tool that does what I need and that I'm more comfortable with. So at some point I'll go through like how to turn Kali into an incident response malware analysis platform, but it's actually not hard. And I find it much easier than the Sturm and Drang of getting Remnux up and running the way that you want it to. I think a lot of times people hear about Remnux or any given tool like, oh yeah, you got to use it because that's the thing to use. Nah. Use what works. Use what you're most comfortable with and get you there. Brand loyalty is dumb, he says, about to root for the Phillies. But check out what else we have here. We have this, in these comments, we have a signature. Sole visible. And I want to shout out Leon VQZ from the Discord, who took a quick look at this and found some pretty cool stuff. So if you look for Sole visible, first of all, you'll find a defunct YouTube channel, and you'll find that it's linked to this group called Alpha Team. Alpha Team also has a Telegram channel that is still wide open. And their Telegram channel has this shell available for download, and that is where I pulled it from. I pulled this shell. Let's look at this Alpha 4.1 Tesla PHP is what I pulled from Telegram. So let's take a look at it. Can you visit the Telegram channel in the global search? Yes, you can. It's not private. You can just go look at it. If you just look for Sole Visible, you'll find it. I believe that they are from Iran. There is some stuff in the actual shell that tells us the decoded shell anyway. But I mean, look at this. So we see the same code, right? Set time limit, INI set, and the same garbage keys in this key value pair, right? As we saw in here in this first stager. So that's a dead giveaway, and you can, but probably shouldn't, use these as strings to search for, like with the Yara rule. Probably shouldn't use these because these are easy enough to change, right? All somebody would have to do is, change these up and do a quick find and replace. Could be a state-sponsored attack. I doubt it very much. The state is... Here's the thing. This isn't about Iran or anybody in the Persian Gulf, right? That's just who made the shell. And they could be using other shells. This is just the one that I found. Again, don't lock in on one thing. What we know is that there's a massive ring of Indonesian gambling sites. We know that in Indonesia, gambling is illegal, but online gambling is a multi-billion-dollar business. What I can kind of derive from that is that it makes at least makes sense to me, that what you would have is a few known domains, right, that you maintain as an operator of this gambling ring, but that they would be set to redirect to a cycling set of these domains that you've compromised. So it's almost like a floating casino. So even though you have a set of known domains, they're redirecting to all these other places, so you can never really shut them down, right? And even if you have to change DNS registrars or whatever, there's so many different ones that you can just redirect to that would be impossible to shut down entirely. And that's how this business is operating. That's what I've been able to kind of piece together in terms of what we're seeing. So this is a hot mess, and you can actually see that there is more base64 encoded stuff inside of this. Now, we can extract this. What we get at the end of the day is the same thing as the Tesla decoded, which they again just give us for free from their Telegram channel. And look, they're even nice enough to provide all of the Telegram information and a Gmail address if you want to send them some email. Here is the decoded web shell, which we are going to use today because this thing is wild. It puts every web shell that I have used as a web app tester to shame. For real, this thing is absolutely wild. There's one other thing I pulled off the Telegram channel that I'll show you in just a second, which is a video tutorial. If we go down all the way to the bottom... Yeah, there we go. Persian Gulf forever. So thank you so much for that bit of attribution. So we at least have a region. But again, this is the source of the web shell. This is not the source of the attack. Okay? I want to make that very clear. That the attack was using this shell, but this shell was getting offered for free on Telegram. So anybody could have downloaded and used it. We don't have any way of drawing a line from this web shell to the Indonesian gambling ring. Okay? The fact that it's an Indonesian gambling ring suggests, Indonesia. But that's kind of it. And so in terms of state-sponsored, I find that unlikely. I believe, and this is kind of one of the big points I wanted to make today, which is we are obsessed with nation-state attacks. We're obsessed with them. That's all you hear about. That's what people are making all the money at conferences about, right? That's what people are selling appliances for, to protect against the next SolarWinds, to protect against, it protects against China going after you with, Alchemist now, or what did they go after like crazy? Oh yeah, the Citrix vulnerability 2019-19781. That is what sells products in the security industry. But I got to tell you, most of what you're going to encounter has nothing to do with state-sponsored attacks. Most of what you're going to encounter are people who are trying to make money. They'll get access to a web server, and what will they do with it? They won't try to pivot internally. They will try to use it to make money. Whether it's this way or another one that I see all the time is that they will host, even if you're a business, but even if you're a business, it's not about that, right? It's mostly about using your infrastructure to get past things like spam filters and phishing filters. So, if think about this. We found, this is too organized to be an advanced persistent teenager. This is a business. This is designed to get people to spend money. That's really what we're seeing here. It's persistent. It's not advanced, but it's persistent and it's widespread. This is a business operation. But what are we doing here? You're seeing that they're just using these places to host ways to make money. A really funny one that I saw a while ago was just hosting redirects to illegal streams of college football games. They had completely taken over a web server if they wanted to. But what did they do with it? Did they go after, in this case, it was a Windows IIS server. Did they go after system or SAM hives? No. Did they try to run Mimikatz? No. Did they try to escalate from the IIS web server user to system? No. Did they do any 0 days? No. They just laid in the cut and made money off of the infrastructure that they had compromised. That is the primary source of threat actors on the planet. Don't pay attention to what vendors are trying to sell you as the reality of threats. That is not true. And if you want to find out for yourself what the reality of threats is, I'm going to show you how in just a few minutes. By setting up your own honeypot. Okay, so this alpha shell, totally crazy thing, right? The other thing that I found on their Telegram channel was an instructional video about how to use it, and specifically about how to hack cPanel. Now, if you're not familiar with cPanel is a product, it's a commercial product that allows you to easily administer a web server for one or more websites. So rather than having to deal with WordPress administration across multiple sites, cPanel allows you to centralize that kind of operation. And so it is, by the way, it's a paid product, right? I think they have like a personal tier that's like $15 per server. But yeah, the cPanel hack is wild because I want you to think about this. So let's say that I am an organization that has multiple WordPress sites that are hosted on cPanel. Okay? And one of them gets popped in the ways that we've discussed and that we are about to demonstrate, by the way. But let's also say that one of these WordPress administrators also happens to be a cPanel admin. If I can pivot from compromising a WordPress site to the cPanel interface, I have not just taken over one site, I have taken over an entire organization's web presence through cPanel. That pivot is massive. Hey, Knight, thank you so much for the Prime sub and do work. Appreciate that as well. And Just a Guy for the resub. Really appreciate all of that support. Take a look at this demo. So there's sound to it. I've muted it because it's really annoying. Thank you, Alpha Team. Again, this was just available. I didn't have to join the Telegram group. I just downloaded it. I wish that Look at this thing. So this is the web shell. So it has all of these pages that it's showing us. It's got a nice file browser. It's got a SQL manager, a database dumper, column dumper. And so what they're going to do is they're going to set up a fake page. And it says it has options, but they're going to set up a fake cPanel page. So they're just looking for a basic cPanel, demo.cpanel.net. So they're using this to clone it. Right? Some of you may have seen this before. Port 2083 is very commonly where this thing lives. Or 8083 I see sometimes. So they're just cloning this. And then this is where it's going to live. This is what it will bind on. And this is where the logs are going to get sent. So all of this gets filled in. Take a look at this. So for a WordPress site, it goes something like this. So they're going to set up a fake page root, index.php, WP login. This is what it binds on. So anytime somebody tries to go to WP login.php, it's going to hook in and actually send you to the fake page. At which point, oh, and then there's a count of, this is important, the count of invalid logins. So what it does is it actually forces, it fakes a failed login 3 times or whatever number you put in there to guarantee that the correct password has been captured. All right, so that's all set up. Notice that there's a fake page root now. All right, so now if somebody tries to log in, if they try to go to wplogin.php, it will redirect them to the fake cPanel login. So this is the turn, right? If you are a cPanel admin and you're trying to log into WordPress and you're not super familiar with how this stuff works, you might be like, okay, I guess I have to log into cPanel for some reason. I have those creds, and you go ahead and type them in. And then it failed. The login failed. So it's going to try again, and it does it 3 times. This is the only way to get past this page, is to fill it in 3 times. And then, all right, once you get past 3 times, come on, number 3. It'll send you to the WP login page so you can finally log in, but they have captured their credentials. Is Alpha Team like a cooperative or something? I don't know, but they are defunct, at least as far as I can tell, because these posts were from 2020. It's a fake panel that fishes for creds. That's exactly right. All right. Thank you so much. Their GitHub has been taken down, but Telegram is still active. Notice also, if we just take a look at the decoded version of the shell, it has configurations for the database. I believe that this hooks into the compromised site's own database. I believe that is true. I could be wrong about that, but I think it's worth checking, right? If you have like an alpha database table. And notice that it has options for Drupal, there's WordPress, there's a bunch of stuff in here. We're down at the bottom. And then most of this is the actual web shell. Now, let's run it and see what it looks like. I'm very interested to see what this looks like. To do so, I have set up a brand new WordPress installation. And by the way, the way I did this was with my own Docker Compose file. If you're interested in playing along and you have Docker with Docker Compose set up, the easiest way that I know how to set up a quick WordPress demo site is with this Docker Compose situation that I put into PWST. But if you go to, the lab WordPress, this Docker Compose file will get you going. Right? So what it does is it has all this stuff. You can change this if you want, but it basically sets up MySQL and WordPress and PHP together, so that everything is configured to easily bring it up, rather than having to manually set up a MySQL server and everything else. What is it? Legit password? Yes. Also, I love that WordPress in default configuration just says whether admin is real or not. You can do username enumeration. Well. Hate handles. Welcome, Raiders. Thank you so much. This is taking a second to log in. That might just be about performance in Kali, because I'm running this locally in my Kali machine with Docker. If we go here and I do Docker container ls, you'll see there's my WordPress and MySQL. There it is. So I have intentionally set up a really I've set up a really insecure installation of WordPress to show you how you would go about this. And this is actually stuff that we do cover in PWST. Hey, Hate Handles, how was your stream? What'd you get up to? So if we wanted to drop a web shell here, I might go to the themes. And I might go to 2020 for reasons which will become clear in a moment. There's more PHP to mess with in the 2020. So I'll activate this one. Classic Man, thank you for the follow. So my first move here is I'm going to compromise this thing with some code to get a web shell. Now, I could drop this entire shell on it if I want, but I actually want to kind of do this in 2 stages. And we'll see why. So I'll go to theme file editor here. I understand. Notice that from the theme file editor, if I go over here, I insanely have access to all of the stuff, right? And I like messing with the 404 page because it's just easy. Will this be uploaded on your account? Of course it is. The VOD will be on Twitch for a couple of weeks, and then it will be on YouTube forever, unless YouTube takes it down, which this one's gnarly enough that they might do that. I've been burned before. Okay, so what am I going to put in here? I like to put the pony shell in here. Let me... Do I have a link to the PWST course? You bet I do. Let me open up my pen test profile real quick. And get my hack tools. Pony shell. There we go. PHP. This is, by the way, this extension is phenomenal for web app testing, right? It has all of kind of the basic stuff that you're going to need. And I like the pony shell. So we're going to just go grab that URL. we'll save that in documents. Malware Slack core. Save it to shell.php. There it is. But the truth is, I'm just gonna copy pasta all this, and in my themes here, I'm gonna put it above everything else. Yeah, Clay, that's right. And the reason it's tricky is because yeah, there we go. So I believe this should work if we just put it all on top. The other thing that we can do is we can end this comment to comment out the entire rest of this PHP and really mess with it. Update file. Ah, dang it. I knew this might be an issue. Unable to communicate back with the site to check for failed errors, so the PHP change was reverted. You'll need to upload your PHP change by some other method. So this happens sometimes, and it like depends on what you do with the file, I found. Unless it's about... Yeah, no, that's not a problem. Let's confirm that we have just like one way to do this. So let's just add an exclamation point to a comment. Yeah, so we can't do that one. We're on 2020. If we try 2021, like we won't be able to edit the 404 page, I don't think. Oh, okay. So 2020 we can edit just fine. That's great news. So what we'll do is we'll set it to 2020. And this is kind of how that goes, right? So we're going to paste our stuff back in, right? We're going to fix this comment here. All good. Close out that PHP. File edited successfully. Phenomenal. Okay, so this is the 2020, which means we're going to go back to themes. And then we're going to edit. We're going to activate the 2020 theme. Oh, it is active. Oh! That was why I couldn't edit the other one. Because it wasn't active. You have to be editing the active thing. Okay, so if I click on Hello World, P equals 2. Let's just go like P equals... Or... like /foo, because I think this is going to work. Come on. Page ID equals 99. Page not found. But which theme was I editing? I was doing 2021, right? Yeah. I edited 2021, so I have to activate 2021. Okay, there we go. I just can't tell the difference between numbers, is the problem. That's why I was an English major. Okay. Awesome. So I think I broke some of the PHP code. If we go to the 404 page. Oh, thank you, Lasso. That's great to know. Yeah, so once it's interesting. So once it's active, I can't do it. Now the question is, can I make stuff happen? So we'll NC. What's my IP address here? I'll do my local 114. Okay, so the commands aren't getting through, so I still have to do some work there to fix this part of the web shell. The easier version of this, by the way, is to not do this at all. So if we go to the 2020 theme, which I should be able to edit now, and go to the 404 page, easier move is to actually just do, if something like this is set, get CMD system get CMD. That's easy days. We should be able to update this file. For the love of God. All right, let's go back to themes. Go back to 2020. You can also add other themes. When did I start learning cybersecurity? So I've been doing IT of one form or another since 2008. But I pivoted to do full cybersecurity in 2018. This part does drive me crazy. This unable to communicate back. It happens sometimes. "2020 is active." Okay. Can I now edit 2021? Which is a hot mess, but we can fix. All right, we get rid of the pony shell. Fix that. Great. So 2021 is up, and what theme is currently active? All right, so let's activate 2021. Okay. Now, perfectly good 404 page, right? But if we do and cmd equals cat etc password, It's still fun. No matter how many times I do this, it's still fun when you get the payoff. Okay, and also, if I curl 192.168 1.14.8888, I should see traffic on my Netcat listener. Oh, let's try that one more time. Yup. So, why does that matter? It matters because now I can actually send it the alpha shell Tesla decoded. So we'll do Python 3 http.server 8443, all good. So now what we'll do is we will, we'll take this and we will (8443) and we will send it to var www HTML. How did I set this up? HTML. We'll call it ts.php. Okay, we see the download. Oh yeah! And there is the alpha shell version Tesla, I think is what we're looking at here. So this is some real deal malware. And honestly, look at all the stuff it tells us. I am using this shell now. I am just using this. I would like to thank Soul Invisible. Right? Look at all this stuff. When we go to a WP content, we can navigate. This is much nicer. Go up a level. It's created an alpha data folder. We, of course, can go look at wp-config.php. Look at this text editor. My head is exploding. This is so much nicer. This is why the good guys can't win. All the bad guys are working for Indonesian gambling syndicates with this kind of tech. Good lord. Oh, it even indicates what file this is, right? ts.php. Oh my god. It has a configure, but just finds everything that you could possibly need. Ah, here's where the database stuff comes in. So once you fill that in, right? I think that's right. How did I did some dumb stuff with the Docker Compose. Database, user, WordPress. Yeah, I think that should work. Oh my god. Wait, hold on. If I do get config, it'll just fill it in for me. Hold on. Path installed. WordPress. Okay, whatever. What else do we have here? Fake page. Just a guy, those are the actual creds. These are the literal creds that I set up. This is what the container's running in. It's WordPress, it's WordPress all the way down because it's just in a Docker container for testing. Oh, no. The problem is that it's not localhost. The database is on, it's called DB. There it is. Those are creds visible in the WP config file too, right? So if I had hit get config, it should have been, it did. So look, I just connected to the database. I can run raw queries in here. I don't think so, or Oof. All right, so we got the database connection working. Defacer. Deface indexers. All files. Interesting. Fake mail. What do we have for fake mail? Sorry, dear admin got me. So this actually will have, this will send email. That's incredible. I have no idea if this is going to send or not. Just checking my mail here. Because in order for it to send, it would have to have a an SMTP server, which presumably it didn't configure. Is it possible to share the GitHub repo for this? No, because it's not a GitHub repo, and I pulled this off of Telegram, which if you go back and watch the video, you'll find out how to find it. I'm not interested in making it that easy to find this thing, to be honest with you. I mean, it already is out there, but like, this thing is rough. Post encryption, right? So you can set this up. You can even set up passwords for it. Insane. Here's some eval, where you can just eval code. It's interesting. Add new admin. Hold on. Add new admin. Incredible. Cloudflare bypasser. That makes sense. What's the backdoor? Install backdoor. In file or in database. So basically, this is where you drop it. Yeah. So basically, you can put it in the PHP. It'll inject its code into another file, I think is what's up there. CMS hijacker. Yeah. And it even has a reverse shell ready to go. How about that? God. Oh, it's trying to open Telegram. Thank you, Ehsan. Oh, look, I didn't even see this before. Iranian programmers. I was right. How long do you think it would take to build something like this on your own? Probably like 6 months to get over my nausea about having to work in PHP again, and then another month to actually do the coding. Okay. I want to do the fake page. I want to do that attack. All right, so we're going to clone. What was that? A cPanel demo? We'll do it exactly how they did in the video. And we'll log out as well. Demo.cpanel.net. This is the one we want. No. No. Oh, there it is. I was like, I lost my page. Sorry. Fake page root. That's fine. Inject into, and this part is into WP login, I think, right? Yeah. No, it's inject to index.php. So that actually is fine. And then bind on WP login.php. This is all correct. This is all correct. So count of invalid logins 3. Go. So now, if I go home, that didn't seem like it worked. Oh, thank you. You're right. I actually have to fill it in. Good call, Lasso. Oh no, they are filled in. Oh, okay. That's doing something. So maybe it wasn't. Oh, now it says success. Okay. So now if I reload the page. And I go to wp login.php. Wow, look at that. It worked. That's really good. Oh my god. So you could imagine doing a fake like Windows authentication too. Or not Windows, Microsoft, or any sort of SSO is what I'm trying to say, single sign-on, right? That would be wild. So I'd try authenticating, and it's going to time out, so the login isn't valid. I try it again, right? Admin 123. Now, the other thing I want to call out here, just so we're having this conversation, is this. What kind of attack is this? Chat, what kind of attack is this? Phishing, sort of. Dolphin attack. Unfamiliar with that term. Broadly speaking, is this not social engineering? Get out of your Sec Plus textbooks. It's not a watering hole because it's not a place where many people go, but it's social engineering, right? This is not an attack against a system that already happened. Stop thinking tacticals. This is a human attack. You are tricking a person. That is the point I'm trying to make. Criminals don't care about your scope, and they don't care about your CTFs, right? The easiest thing for them to do is to trick a person. And so all of the code that they're going to write is about tricking people. But the stuff that you practice most of the time, I bet, unless you are a professional red teamer, is not about tricking people. And what you think about is probably much more about technical pipelines than human pipelines. That is not what your primary adversaries are doing. They are tricking people. And so if you want to get really good at defending against this stuff, you got to think about how to lie to people and how to trick them and how to prevent them from being tricked. Or if they are tricked, how the compromise is of minimal impact. And the thing that I really want to impress upon, especially new learners here in cybersecurity, is that there is no hack the box. There is no try hack me room that you can do that simulates this. I haven't seen one that actually simulates a user clicking on a fake thing that you've gotten them to do. And that's actually one of the problems with doing cross-site scripting in a lot of those environments, because that is the real danger of cross-site scripting, right? Somebody visiting something or clicking on something, triggering the cross-site, and then you get the session or something. There's a clickjacking box. Yeah, clickjacking is not really, I mean, it's pretty rare, but my point here is that the simulation of human behavior is not something that you find in those sorts of training materials, but it is, in fact, what your adversaries are counting on. That is a massive gap. All right, let's go check out our shell. Where did we... Logs.txt? Yeah. Look at that. Pick that up, no problem. Why isn't it picking up these images? I'm curious. Oh, that's so funny. It's pulling them from soulvisible.com. That's hilarious. Now again, this will not be visible to defenders, right? Because this is happening in the client, that callout. And this shell isn't, when you see it encoded, it's not present that way on your system when it's dropped. Isn't password stored as hashes? Yeah, it is. That doesn't mean they're not guessable. And plus, the whole point was that the way in that we demonstrated here was from a weak guessable admin password. By the way, how would you... And that's actually a great pivot. Thank you, Sohail. So let's talk about this in the real world now that we've played with this in sort of a sandbox. And I am very impressed with this tool. How long does it usually take to discover a web shell? Boy, does that depend, OreoBite. Here are some realities. So especially for things like cPanel, you don't have the kinds of defensive controls that you have in fully managed servers. Sorry, not fully owned servers, I should say. A managed solution is the problem, right? Where you don't have the ability to put your own EDR on things. You can't search for files on there the same way, right? Those things can get popped and you might not know for a while because you're not in full control of that server. You're at the mercy of whatever the vendor is providing. So that's a problem. But yeah, it can take a minute. Let's take one of these as an example. Let's take... Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The state of Arizona's Department of Corrections. Excellent. That's interesting. Pantheon. That's so funny. Let's try to find one that does exist, right? Washington. The state of Washington. Oh no. Now, this one could be a domain takeover. Yeah, this could be a subdomain takeover. Pragmatic play. Oh, nice. Let's go to archive.org and see how long this thing has been compromised. By the way, if you are in a position to donate to archive.org, you should. They need your help. Okay, so let's see. March 2022. So March 2022, it appears to be showing us the Washington Horse Racing Commission. Okay. And let's go to May. Or in April, look, April 18th, it looks like. So April 18th, it was still the Washington Horse Racing Commission. Okay. And then this is like now. October 6th. Okay, so all we know is that sometime between April and October. And so 6 months on the outside? Right? people will set, especially WordPress sites, people will set it and forget it. And not log in for a long time once they've set up the static content that they need. It's a real problem. Okay, so I want to now pivot to how this might look in the real world and how to catch it. And for that, we're going to leave the Kali machine and we're going to head over to the wonderful world of Azure. I have set up a website at owlfarts.com. It's a domain that I own. I don't know why. And I have set up a page about transhumanism. I didn't write this article, by the way. I had an AI essay writer write it for me because I was curious what that would do. But here's the point. If I were to attack this page, right? I go to wplogin.php. First of all, it tells me that admin exists. And this might be the first thing that attackers look for, right? If it gives us that error. Because that tells us that, first of all, admin exists and no one did anything smart to reconfigure WordPress to be more secure. Chat, what would be your first guesses as to what the password for this thing is? Admin. Password. Okay. WordPress. All good guesses. In this case, the domain, right? Owlfarts. You can certainly do that. You can mutate it with 2022. By the way, I made a tool to do password mutation based on rules that's, I think, a little bit easier than the hashcat syntax. Nobody seems to like it, but I've used it with great success. Where is it? PWFez RS. Yeah, this thing is cool. So you set up rules like this. So you can set up an append rule, a prepend, and you just do it with JSON, right? And upper, lowercase, you can insert at different positions and append random numbers, and it'll generate. So if you give it these 3 passwords, it'll generate these different permutations for you. Written in Rust. Anyway, if I were to visit this page, right? If I were to do this in Kali, yeah, let's do it. Since apparently no one has done it yet. I'm going to open up my Pentest profile here, and we'll go visit it. And I'm also opening up Zap so that we can do the brute force. One of the first things that I would do in real life, would you try password fuzzing through Zap? Exactly right. One of the things that I would do in real life, in addition to using that PW fuzz or hashcat if I really wanted to, but this is for creating password lists, not fuzzing hashes or cracking hashes. What I might do is use cool and send it to owlfarts.com. Generate word list from web page. Exactly. And that's what cool does. So cool's going to go do its thing. And meanwhile, we'll bring up allforarts.com. I was trying to think of something quiet. What's quiet? An owl. What's a quiet thing an owl does? Okay, cool. Still doing its work. We'll add this to a new context. Must you not give cool how deep it should go in the minimum word length to index? It has defaults. We have to clone the repo before we can use curl? No. Curl's built in for Kali. You don't have to clone anything. Now, this is a bunch of junk. So I don't need all this. If I want to do 8 characters, what I might do is I could grep for it, right? Egrep. But of course I could also run cool with the options that were mentioned here, right? Min word length. So we run it again with -m and 8, which is a little bit closer to what we might want. That's a little bit easier. To be honest with you, I prefer the whip param. What does that do? Don't just say the thing. Say what it does. Explain it to people. If you don't do that, if you just say, oh, cool whip. Good job. Good job. Well done. Well done, Clay. Well done. You got me. A plus. Clay gets a sub for that. Hang on. Okay, so we have this thing finally. There it is. And we go to wplogin.php. What we want to do... so Heil, Cool Whip is an American dessert thing. It's been around since the 70s. It's like it's a whipped cream made out of science. So admin, which we will get and fail. So now that we have that inside of Zap, right? What we can do is we can highlight the password and fuzz it and go to payloads, add, file, select, documents, where am I? Slackacore, farts.txt. And notice that this is 8 characters, right? Add, start the fuzzer. Now, WordPress is a little bit tricky. What we're looking for here is a redirect rather than a 200. Because you can see that we got a 200 okay for a failed login. So if it works, we're looking for a 302, a redirect. So we'll fire this off and we'll see what we get. We'll sort by code. There's the 302. Ah, the password transhumanism appears to work. Is this a lab or is it real? Little bit of both. We're in. Now, this is a honeypot. I have the Elastic Agent set up on this, and I have an elk stack in Azure watching everything that happens here. As you can see, I now see admin logins. And what I'm looking at here, look at this spike in events. Right? And I see this series of WP login.phps. This is the attack. And yes, you can see my external IP, whatever. This is the attack. And then once I see from the same source that they're actually in WP admin, that's the ball game, right? I know that I've caught them. And I'll be able to see whatever they do afterward. So, how do you identify a honeypot? Well, I made this one, so I knew what it was. But generally, it's stuff that's too easy. Now, let's talk about how I made this, because I want to show you the steps that you need to take to make your own. First of all, let's go to my honeypots resource group here in Azure. I have 3 virtual machines running. Honeypress 2 is going to be the one that we set up live today. Honey Elk is the elk stack, and Honeypress is what we just looked at. That was alpharts.com. Honeypress, or Honey Elk, is just an Ubuntu 2204 server. That's all it is, with the Elastic Container Project. I finally figured out how to do this correctly with the Elastic Container Project. This thing rules. This is far and away the easiest way to set up an ad hoc elk stack with the Elastic Agent that I have found. And it is what I am now using for my labs because it's so fast. All you have to do is in the .env file in this repository, you don't even have to change this stuff. You can keep this as it is. Then set up your Elastic username, change your stuff. If you want to enable rules for detection, just set up LinuxDR, set this to 1, Windows to 1, macOS to 1 if you want that. Keep it for the basic unless you want to try the full thing for Elastic. All of this can remain the same. Change your memory limit to whatever the maximum for your Docker host is, whatever that is. And then Docker compose up. That's it. That's it. And then what you get is you get an elk stack that's up and running with it's already configured as a fleet server, meaning it's ready to accept connections from Elastic agents that you also connect. So what I have going on here is that all 3 of these things, if we go to Honeypress, right, they have public IPs, but they also are part of the HoneyNet virtual network. So these are all in the same virtual network, which means that they can speak to each other over the ports that the Elastic Agent is going to use. Literally the only thing that you have to change once you get up the Elastic Container Project, the only thing you have to change, and this was big thank you to IPSec, because as luck would have it, 2 days after I did my malware lab stream last week, he released a video kind of doing the same stuff, and he ran into the same problems I did, not getting telemetry back from Elastic Agents. What he figured out was that out of the box, even, and this isn't documented, you have to change some fleet policy settings. If you go to settings here, the outputs have to be changed. By default, the output, this is what it's configured as by default, this one right here. See this? This is no bueno. What you have to do in order for your agents to actually phone home is set it to the actual listening IP that is available to every host that you want to collect from. So in this case, in my virtual net, it's 10.1.0.4. That's what this fleet server actually is. And by the way, yes, you see this IP, but you cannot get to this interface because it's firewalled out to only allow for my IP. But Once you set this as the default output and configure the agents to use that, you will start getting data in. That's it. And set the host URL as well. That is it. And by the way, IPsec said that you have to go into the server to configure these. You do not. That is not correct. When you start Elastic like this, you'll see that there's a single default output, and see how it says default here for this one. These will be on this local host. All you have to do is click add output, change these up, and then click the make this default, and it will switch it over. And then this is the kicker. Unless you change your certificates, unless you actually do some good cert work, you have to add SSL dot verification mode false, which will accept self-signed certs. That's it. And then you will have data coming in. Would you add more videos into the PWST course? Not right now. That thing stands as it is. I think it speaks for itself. There may be an advanced course that comes down the pipe a little bit later, but it won't be on TCM. Okay? And the next course that I'll be releasing is Python for Defenders Part 2. So there's some stuff on the roadmap before I get back to web app stuff. I personally feel like PWST is a pretty good piece of work as it is. I don't know of any other, not to log roll too much, but I don't know of any other web app courses that even talk in that depth about modern web applications with Angular or React. So yeah, pretty okay with where it is for right now. Okay, so once you have the Elastic container project up and running. All right, Clay, thanks for hanging out. Once you have that up and running, you can add agents. Now, obviously, I've already done so, but all you would have to do is click Add Agent and then follow everything else up. The other thing that I have done is I have added some integrations. In my Linux honeypots, I have the Nginx integration, so that Nginx logs are coming in to my Elk stack natively. I don't have to set up a FileBeat config. I don't have to do anything difficult. I just have to add this integration, point and click, and the agents will update to use this integration. So this is how the one honeypot is already set up to work. And that's kind of what you're seeing here, is we have this access. Let's see if anybody else has gone for it. Nope. So I'm going to exclude my IP, right? So you can see that I do have some people going after it, right? Some folks are visiting BOA form. And you'll even be able to see if I add the response code. Again, this is all Nginx data. This is all parsed from Nginx logs. I can get the response status code. So if I add that column in the table, I can see whether it was successfully accessed or not. So obviously this BOA form, which somebody's trying, was from 404. I now am collecting IP addresses from people who are attacking me, and I'm seeing how they're attacking me. So we can see, you know, exactly what this kind of alpha shell attack or something like it might appear to be. I was hoping to catch one of these. There we go. Some folks are coming in. Now that I've published what the actual password is, go after it. Do it to it. All right, thanks for hanging out, Sohail. So yeah, we're just waiting for something going on here. Now, while we're waiting for this to do something, how do we set up our own? How do we set up a new one? So the first thing that we're going to need is to SSH. You want us to auth to your server? Go for it. Yep, somebody has. 146.70.86.116 has auth to my server. Let's look for exactly what this source IP is doing. There you go. WP login.php. User profile. Looks like they're adding some users maybe. Async upload. We've got some folks going to work here. Nice. Now I'm curious if Elastic Alerts is picking up anything. Nothing so far. Oh. The rules should have been there. But that's okay. We'll add them now. Okay. And then we will select all and enable them. Very curious. Somebody has added a user, the real tagger. My session is still active, so interestingly, no, it doesn't. Very funny. Added me as a subscriber as opposed to an admin. Not sure why. Anything get uploaded? Oh, nice. Look at this. Good work. Nicely done indeed. Let's see if we get anything else. Last few minutes. Looks like that's it for right now. Plugin installs. Oh boy. We're installing plugins. Okay. Let's talk about how to make your own one of these, because it's not simple this way. The trick... Okay, so a couple of questions that I feel like I need to answer. If this is in Azure, why on earth am I not using Azure Sentinel? Yeah, activated hello Dolly and Gutenberg. If this is in Azure, why am I not using Sentinel? And that's a good question. The answer is I tried really, really hard, and the Nginx integration for Azure Sentinel is broken as hell. No, not money. I could have afforded it. I mean, I'm paying for these VMs anyway, but no. The answer is the Nginx integration is broken. So the way that Azure Sentinel works is that it has, for virtual machines, it has these agents that are running on the machine to collect data in different ways, okay? Now, the Nginx integration, first of all, was in beta, but also Microsoft had an older version of the agent called the Log Analytics agent, and that's what the integration was written for. There is a new agent called the Azure Monitor agent. I'm sorry, this is Microsoft just being Microsoft, right? So the new version of the agent doesn't work with this integration and right now. And so try as I might, even with custom log infill and everything else like that, I could not get Nginx logs coming into Sentinel. I really wanted to do this with Sentinel, but I couldn't do it. And so I fell back to my backup plan of just deploying the Elk stack in Azure and using it this way. It is not the way that I would have preferred to do it, because Sentinel is really cool. Unfortunately, for a web-based monitor, which I needed, right? I needed to have Nginx monitoring. I just couldn't do it with Sentinel right now. So that's an important note, right? That if you're going to do this kind of stuff with Sentinel, there are limitations despite the amount of money that you're going to pay for it. Some more work coming in from our friend at 146. Okay, so making your own honeypot. How does this go? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Honeypress 2, and I'm going to get its public IP. Now, again, I have configured the networking such that SSH is only allowed from my IP address, so you can't do this. HTTP and HTTPS are allowed globally because it's a web server, it has to be. But SSH is only allowed from me. Now, I have used a private key that I've set up to work with these machines, and I have SSH'd into it. Here I am here as Azure user at the Honeypress 2. I have already gone through the trouble of installing the Elastic Agent, as you saw, and I've also gone through the trouble of installing Nginx, MySQL Server, and PHP. There are a few other things that I'm going to need, but we'll go through those in just a second. I'm going to follow some documentation from DigitalOcean because, as usual, their documentation on how to do stuff like this is the best around. So here is the link to that documentation. And we're going to do this with a proper domain and everything. So we're going to get a proper signed certificate, the whole smash. You're going to see how to do every part of this. So the first thing we're going to need to do that I haven't installed yet is use Snap to install certbot. Yeah, one reason why the DigitalOcean documentation is so good is because they pay for it. They literally have essentially a bounty program. If you write documentation for a specific procedure that is of value to them, they'll pay you a couple $100 for the walkthrough. At least they used to. Yeah. Here it is. Write for DigitalOcean. $300 per tutorial. Hey, GoPro. I love Dio. I've been a Dio customer for, oh my god, a long time now. I've been a Dio customer for a long time, and I've never had a problem with their platform. Wonder what Dio was looking for? That question is answered right here, Oreo. Yeah, their Kubernetes stuff is I think it's a little pricey, but I do like their managed Kubernetes. Okay, so that's done. This is done. Right, we are installing stuff. So the first thing we need to do is install certbot so that we can get a signed certificate and configure Nginx all in one go. So we're going to use sudo snap install certbot. And this is Ubuntu 22.04. -- classic. Okay. Meanwhile, I am going to set up my domain registrar. So that I can add a subdomain to alfarts.com for my second honeypot. And I'm doing this off screen because you don't need to see my DNS registrar. And set that to the public IP. Good. Oop, that's an A record. Excellent. Is Snap certbot more updated? So that's a really good question. Why would I use the Snap version than just like apt install? The reason is that the Snap version has all the Python plugins built in already. And so what I can do from here, I'm going to give it a minute because we got to install some other stuff too. And let the DNS record propagate. But it has the Nginx configurator built in, so I don't have to do that manually. Crazy helpful. Let me install the other stuff that I need for WordPress. So sudo apt install y. And I don't know why the documentation is missing this, but you definitely need PHP MySQL. I don't know why it missed that. So we'll install those. God, so fast. Okay, so that's up. We can now, and I've already set up Nginx is running, but it's not configured correctly, but we're going to let certbot do that for us. So we have the Nginx server running here, right? And if I go now, I think, to hp2.alfarts.com, yeah, the web server's up. So I need to configure this. In order to do that, I am going to sudo. I have to do a symlink so everything works with certbot, right? Yes. Certbot's documentation is pretty good on this too. Certbot's instructions are neat. If you go to certbot, it says my HTTP website is Nginx on. We can use Ubuntu 20. No meaningful differences between that. So we've done Snap. And this we need to do this symlink. Okay. And then, yeah, just sudo certbot Nginx. Okay. Fine. Yeah, I agree. No to my email. hp2.alfarts.com. It's requesting a certificate by using Nginx and confirming that I have control over it. And now I have a signed certificate. That is as easy as it is. Now, the other thing that this did, because I gave it the Nginx config, is that the Nginx configuration is set up. So now, look, it's already redirecting me to HTTPS. So it's that easy to set up a secure cert. You definitely want to take that step. Does that auto renew the cert? No, but you can configure it. Right? All you would have to do, the certbot explains how to do that. Right? Sudo certbot renew. And then certbot packages will come. Oh no, my bad. It does. The certbot packages on your system come with a cron job or systemd timer that will renew your certificates automatically before they expire. Yeah, wow, that's way easier. Dang. Now, I will say that works for single domains. I do not think that's true for wildcard domains or wildcard certs a little bit harder. No, apparently it'll do automatic. I don't know if that's 100% true. Wildcard certs are a little bit trickier, or at least they used to be. But that is cool. Okay, so we aren't entirely done, though, because I have also latest.zip. This is WordPress. You have to install unzip. And then we'll unzip latest.zip. Look, there's WordPress. Right? Now, if I do sudo cp-r WordPress to var www html WordPress, and then sudo chown, this is an important step, by the way, -r www data, which is the web user, and group var HTML WordPress. I am doing this so that the right users and only the right users have the permissions in this directory. Okay. Now, WordPress is kind of set up, but Nginx now needs some modification in order for us to work. So let's take a look in this. If we use Vim, you can use Nano too. Etsy, Nginx, sites, enabled, default. You will see that there's this server 80 block here. And beneath it, there's another server block. And this one, notice, has our domain in it and some other stuff. This is the thing that we want to keep. These bottom two server blocks that certbot made for us, these are what we want to keep. Notice the listen 443 and another listen 80. Notice that this listen 80 is looking for hp2.alpharts.com and it's returning a 404 for anything that isn't the host, right? But if it is, then it's doing a redirect to HTTPS, same deal. This is what we want to redirect HTTP to HTTPS. So the first thing we want to do is actually blow away this default server configuration. All of this goes until we get to the virtual host configuration. Actually, that can go too. The first thing that we want is this actual server block, right? That has our server name. Next, our root is wrong because we put it in the WordPress folder. Also next, we have to add index.php to our list of index things. This, by the way, if you've ever wondered how your browser knows or how a web server knows to serve index.php or whatever when you just go to a domain, this is how. The index file is actually configured in the server config. And so you could put whatever you want in here to serve as the index file. But by default, it's going to be index.html.htm, and then this one, which is kind of out of the box. But we're going to add index.php because we know that it's there. Okay, we have the server name, hp2.alpharts.com. We're going to leave that alone. We also have to change this up. So we know that we have PHP files, but PHP is managed by a different piece of software. In Apache, which is commonly how this thing is deployed, Apache has a built-in PHP module, okay? But Nginx does not. So what we do with Nginx is we pass with CGI, Common Gateway Interface, we pass the PHP requests to a local socket. There's another service on this machine called PHP FPM, and that is going to be handling PHP for us in Nginx. So we have to uncomment some of this stuff and mess with it. So we're going to uncomment this location PHP, and we're using PHP FPM, as I said. So we're uncommenting that. The version is wrong because PHP FPM is now 8.1. There's also, because of the way that WordPress routes its sites, there are also a couple of things that you want to add as well. And I'm just going to add those in here. And this is all in the the DigitalOcean documentation. All right, fix some of this indentation. So again, this is just stuff that we're doing to make WordPress work the way that it's supposed to. We're also going to change up the location root, the way that this try-files works. And instead, it's going to look like this. Index.php, and then the args. That looks pretty good. And then save this up. We're going to sudo nginx-t just to confirm the config. Everything looks good. Before we get everything ready to go, the next thing we're going to do is run MySQL. We have to create a WordPress database and a user. So this is the easy mode version of it, right? Create database WordPress, default character set, UTF-8, collate, UTF-8, Unicode CI. All right, now there's a WordPress database, and we're going to set up a WordPress user. Identified by, we're setting up a bad password because that's kind of the point. And we're going to grant all rights on the WordPress database to that WordPress user. Okay. And now sudo systemctl restart php fpm and restart nginx. Uh-oh. What'd I do wrong? Totally empty. It's not giving me a 404, or is it? It's a 200. So it's just not serving the right thing. So what'd I mess up? WordPress index index.php. Does this need a trailing slash? Come on. Everything was going so smoothly. SSL looks good. What'd I forget? It's all there. Index.php. Yeah. Good, good, good. Oh, let's make sure that I didn't mess something up in the PHP FPM. I don't think that I did. It's PHP 8.1 fpm.sock, right? Yeah, PHP 8.1. Anything in the nginx log? Sudo vim var log nginx error log. No, we're seeing 200s. Something's going on with the redirect here, I think. This is literally the way that I did it with the other one. So hold on a second. Let's actually do a comparison. As your user at barts.com. Okay, so let's see. WordPress. WordPress. I blew away some of the other index.phps, but that should not matter. Location is exactly the same. Try files, also exactly the same. CID pass also done. I did do the HT access thing, although I can't imagine that makes a difference. Okay. Everything else is exactly the same. Wow, this is different. Server name not indented, but that doesn't matter because the lines are terminated by semicolons. It's C-like. It's almost as though... Nope. index.php is there. Yeah. It is serving. So the problem is the WordPress site. That is wild. Interesting. So rm ref var data press. Everything's there. It's like it's not doing the PHP. No. Bizarre. Let's take a break here and see if anybody else has hit the honeypot, since we've got some 99s here. It's interesting. This theme loads. Ooh. We have some echo.phps, which was the URL that was originally sent. It's interesting. And do we have any... This is comment scanning. Do we have any alerts? bet we don't have any rules for it yet. But we look for Linux rules. They're in here. Actually, I wonder, is there a WordPress integration? I didn't even think to look. No. Sadly, there is not. There are a lot of cool integrations. But, actually, Alien Vault might be a cool one, too. Because especially if you're running a Honeypot, you'll be able to connect this to indicators of compromise, right? Not gray noise, unfortunately. But Alien Vault is a cool one. I am very confused. I know that I just did something very silly. CD Vim, let's see, Nginx, sites enabled. Okay, PHP's working. If I go to like WTP login.php, it's like blocking everything. That is totally wacky. Okay, you know what? The nuclear option. We're going to restart the VM. But other than, I don't know why that's happening yet. I'm sure it's something up with like how the services are configured or some other piece of this. This is the exact steps that I took last night to set this up. But regardless, these are the steps that you take in order to create a WordPress-based honeypot. And the trick is that you have the data coming in from the Elastic agent into your sock here. So you can see all of the things that are happening on it. Now, I'm just looking at the data stream from Nginx Access, right? You can see these are fun. Look at this shell, right? RMRF star wget to this IP address. These are the kinds of attacks that you will incur once you set up one of these. And you know what's fun? Now I can pull that down too. What was the full command? /jaws. Look, I just got somebody's malware. Thank you. Picked up some good indicators of compromise here. This is, by the way, this is what we call active defense, right? We're not waiting for indicators to come in and then just block them. We're going out and checking. And if you do this as part of an organization, right, then you start to see who's actually targeting you. Then you can collect this information, and these are your high value indicators, right? These are the people who you know are aiming right at your head. Not only do you know who, where, you know how. Right? So plainly, it's trying to pull this thing down. jaws.exploit, right? So if you wanted to, you could just pull this. Now you're collecting your own malware samples, and you can go and do whatever you want to do with these. Honest to God, what happened to this server? Yeah, it's a bit of data. Yes, I'm standing up. See all these 404s? If I want to filter this a little bit more, what I could do is filter for only 200s and see only the things that were successful. This is very handy for me because now I see the things that were successful. 404s, I don't care about so much. Hasn't been a whole lot in the last couple of minutes. We're still trying to get this HP2 up, which I cannot. All right, let me just confirm. That's not going to work. HP2. Uh. Okay, the problem is PHP. So the problem is our PHP executor, and I don't know why. PHP, CGI pass, PHP 8.1. Oh wait, this is wrong. It's not run. It's var run. Good God. Wait, that's still wrong. No, there is a run PHP. My bad. It's PHP 8.1 fpm.sock. That's correct. PHP 8.1 fpm is the one that's installed. We looked at the config. It's exactly the same. Oh, wait a second. God. No, this should all be good too. Yeah. Yeah, sites available. What's in sites enabled? Make sure it's all looking correct. Indeed it is. I'm sorry, friends. I really can't figure out exactly why this particular instance of our Honeypot is not playing ball, whereas the other one is working just fine. Right? There's literally no difference. I have tried turning it off and on again, actually. Hey, HashCloud, thanks for the follow. So we're going to apt install PHP 8.1 fpm again. There we go. Worth a shot. Yeah. Because all the modules are there. Seems good. And again, oh, I didn't make an index.html. Well, I'm not getting a 404 or anything either. I'm just getting it. Something's up with the config here, because it shouldn't be. I should be getting a. Include snippets. Oh, good eye, Nick. Maybe that's right. Let me see. Did I miss that? I think you might have just solved it. Very good eye. There it is. Good job, Nick. Well done. Okay. Yeah. So there was one line of configuration difference between the two. I forgot to enable the snippets half an hour later. Okay, so we'll set this all up, right? The database name is WordPress. The username is WordPress user. What was it? I forget what I set the WordPress password to. We'll have it up here somewhere. I hope. Yes, thank you, God. Thank you, T-Mux. Okay. Boom. Run the installation. And now this is finally going to go install. And that's it. Now we have a second honeypot that we are connecting from. And because all of the information is already coming in, if I change this up, actually, DataStream Nginx Access, we'll just pull it in right now. The difference is, yeah. So now the difference is I need to add a column for the cloud instance.name or the agent.name. Either one will do. And if we toggle this column, we'll move it over. Now you can see that I'm pulling in from Honeypress 2 as well as Honeypress. And now I'm just basically waiting for people to do their thing. So that is how you set up one of these honeypots in Azure. And again, unfortunately, the Nginx integration with Sentinel is not ready for prime time, which means that as much as I want to do this in the built-in SIM in Azure, which is pretty cool, I can't. I had to set up the Elk stack with the Elastic Container project and do all this other stuff. This is where kind of being a system administrator before doing this really comes in handy. All right, so to recap, we went through a compromise that I found that is impacting hundreds of thousands of sites, if not millions of sites across the planet. We took a look at the kinds of things that they're doing to get Indonesian gambling pages on all of these compromised sites across the internet. It seems WordPress specific. Brute forcing of passwords, potentially extension exploits, and subdomain takeovers to allow Indonesian gambling to live on all sorts of sites across the internet, including government sites run by the US government and states, including lots of major organizations, educational institutions, you name it, it's there. We looked at the alpha team web shell that at least one set of this compromise was using, and we even played with it to compromise our own site, and this thing was crazy powerful in what it could do. We also demonstrated how the cPanel takeover was possible. And what else you can do with this shell, which I will be using in the future just because of how powerful it is. And then we went and set up our own honeypots in Azure. So overall, a pretty good day's work. Yes, I'm now waiting to see what happens. And I may not leave these up and running for too long because they are not free. These are this is a 2 CPU 8 gig machine for the Elk stack, and it's a 2.4 for the Honey presses. So they are not free. So I might blow this away later today, so I'm saving some money. But this is how you set this up when you're ready to set it up. All right. I think with that, we are ready to call it a day. Thank you so much, friends, for hanging out. I hope you learned something. I know I did, like how to pay attention to all parts of my Nginx config, and had a lot of fun showing you about this investigation. I should also mention, actually, that my organization was cool enough. Is that not right? Is it dash? There we go. My organization was cool enough to let me publish this report institutionally because it was something that we found. And if you want to read more about it, I wrote up this whole thing, everything we went through today, including showing the Telegram channel. And I even included a Yarrow rule for you if you want to go hunt for this web shell in your environment. These are things that you will definitely, without those changed variable names, these are things that most people will probably leave in place without changing. And so odds are good that if even the encoded version of the web shell is present, you will find it with this Yarrow rule. Happy hunting if you're interested in doing so. I think for now, though, we're going to go raid GoPro, who is up and running. Our good friend GoPro Slowyo. And I will be back on Wednesday doing some programming. So until next time, friends, please be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. We'll see you next time.